Here's Kathy. Thank you. As she said, I'm Kathy Klein at Strategic Wealth Partners, and I think this is our 5th year of sponsoring this great event. We're really thrilled and proud to be able to promote just such an in-depth look at some of our friends and neighbors. But tonight we're honored to have a really special guest, Claire Rolfs, and Claire is here to tell the remarkable story of her father, Thomas J. Rolfs, a man whose vision and values made an indelible and lasting imprint on the West Bend community and beyond. And Claire and her family have continued that legacy through their foundation, exemplifying what generosity and thoughtfulness and a deep commitment to the betterment of other people. And the Rolfs family has long been recognized for their philanthropic leadership, but it also goes well beyond that, and they've made enormous contributions to the business climate and the civic environment in our life and in our community. And Claire brings a deep personal connection to this history, and we're really grateful tonight for her willingness to share reflections and insights on her ancestry.
All right, good evening. I cannot tell you how much fun and how excited I am to be here with you tonight. Find my glasses. Okay. I'm going to start out telling you that my family's story is the story of immigrants, and it is the story in many ways of West Bend. The arc of the family follows the arc of West Bend, so far in both cases. So tonight I'm going to start out with Balthazar Getter, who arrived in Milwaukee in 1846. He worked at a brewery in Milwaukee for about 3 or 4 years, and then decided he wanted to build his own. He had a couple friends in the West Bend area, Stephen and Charlie Meyer. And we're not sure whether it was Stephen and Charlie or Charlie and Stephen, because they each had a son, and Stephen named his son Charlie and Charlie named his son Stephen. So there is some confusion on this level, but his friends were Stephen and Charlie of whatever generation. And they said, come to West Bend. It's a new community. It has a grist mill, and I think we're going to get a sawmill pretty soon. So this is a happening place. So Balthazar looked at this and he thought, yeah, West Bend's got possibilities, but you know, it means I gotta leave Milwaukee and move out to West Bend, and there's not much of a life out here. And Stephen and Charlie said, but wait, we have sisters in Germany. Seriously. So Balthazar goes down through the Great Lakes, 6 weeks on the Atlantic Ocean to Germany to meet a Meyer girl, convince her to marry him, and brings her back 6 weeks across the Atlantic, back through the Great Lakes, back to West Bend, Wisconsin, where he builds a brewery with living quarters on top. And at this point, my brother Ted says, didn't this guy have to work at all? So we're not sure about that. Anyway, so he gets the brewery up and running, and he develops a serious eye infection. And for some reason, that means he can't run a brewery. So he passes the brewery off to Stephen and Charlie Meyer. And he turns around and builds a hotel, which becomes the Washington House Hotel. And the segue here is that you've got to remember that West Bend was determined to be a great place because it was approximately the halfway point between Milwaukee and Fond du Lac, Green Bay. So for anybody traveling north, it was a great place to stop over and spend the night. And so he builds this hotel. It's got a spring in the basement. He's got stables and food for the horses. And he's got a fabulous garden in the backyard. And he probably initiated the farm-to-table movement. Way ahead of his time. And everything is absolutely great. It's going to work out terrifically until New Year's Day of, 1864, I think. Yes. Okay. It's severely cold in Wisconsin, and everybody's at the Washington House. The rooms are all full. Everybody's happy. They're playing billiards. They're playing poker. They're looking for a big turkey meal. Everything's going great, and somebody yells fire, and the whole thing goes to hell in a handbasket because everybody starts throwing everything out all the windows, even the wash basins. They just start indiscriminately offloading everything they can think of to find. And the most important thing is 2 people braved it and went down into the cellar to rescue the sauerkraut jar, which they took to safety. But when all was said and done, the only thing left was the wood stove that overheated and started the fire, and so much for that. So that was New Year's Day. Balthazar says, I'll rebuild. He does, and on October 15th, 10.5 months later, he reopens. It's totally amazing. And this time the building is made out of a cream-colored brick, which is not Cream City brick, but it was a light Cream City brick. And that's the building that still stands in downtown West Bend today, although that's been worked over a few times. So, all of that's good. All right. Balthazar married the Meyer girl, Elizabeth Meyer. They had 2 daughters, Elizabeth and Mary. We're not going to worry about Mary, we're going to talk about Elizabeth. Mary married a pick and moved one direction. Okay, so that point, enter Henry Rolfs. Henry Rolfs was born in Milwaukee, November 6th of 1854. His parents were Gertrude and Henry. Both were natives of Germany as well. As a young man, Henry learned the cigar trade, and from 1876 until 1881, he was employed as a commercial traveler. Does anybody know what a commercial traveler is?
Salesman?
He was repping for a tobacco company, for tobacco leaves. So he would travel around and, I guess, sell tobacco to various other cigar makers. In the meantime, he marries Margaret Ziegler of the Ziegler Candy Company, which is no relationship to the Zieglers we all know and love. So they have 4 children, 2 survive, Margaret dies. By the way, this is a very common theme. The women die, the men remarry, and have more children. So that leaves 2 kids. At that point, Henry marries Elizabeth Getter, the other daughter of Balthazar Getter. Whoops. They move to West Bend in 1891. It was announced in the West Bend News on October 21st that the family of Mr. H. Rolfs will move their household effects to the city next week. They have purchased the Figi residence, paying $2,100 for said property. That was in the paper. So, how are we doing that? Yes, we're with Henry. Henry and Elizabeth have 4 more children. Clara, Robert H., born in 1888, who is our grandfather, Baltus, and Harry. There they are. There they are. That's Elizabeth on the right. And Robert is this young man. Now, the interesting thing about Robert, born in 1888, is he thought, until he got ready in about 3rd grade to make his first Holy Communion, he believed his name was Grover Cleveland Rolfs. I haven't got a clue why they would do that to him. But what happened is the nuns said, you can't make your first Holy Communion unless you have a saint's name. So he went home and talked to his parents and found out his whole given name was Robert Henry and not Grover Cleveland. It's just one of those things. So, okay. Elizabeth dies in 1903. According to Uncle David Rolfs, she was killed in a horse and buggy accident in the area where Schweiz was later located. I have no verification of that other than Uncle David's word. So there you have that. In 1898, the wholesale leaf tobacco house Henry was repping for burned to the ground. So he opened up his own cigar factory in West Bend. He will endeavor at all times to manufacture first-class cigars. Thus, we have red top cigars. Yes. Henry goes on to do all sorts of things, like running for the Register of Deeds, which you saw his campaign poster before that said he was a jolly good fellow. He did not win. We don't know what happened, but we know he didn't win. He became a justice of the peace, and in August of 1912, the paper reports Henry has rented the golf building on North Main Street for his cigar factory. And he will also hear justice court cases there. Okay, go to the smoking. Here is the Rolfs red top smoking room. Doesn't that sound like a cool place? Yeah, what are you doing this afternoon? I'm going down to the smoking room. And I have no idea who these men are. I don't want to know. But evidently this was quite the deal in West Bend to go to the smoking room. Do you know one of them?
No, like 2 to 5 cents in the corner. 5 cents for a cigar.
Oh yeah.
The question is, were women alone?
Yeah.
It doesn't look that way. They were all dying. So. I don't know what kind of dog that was, Purdy. I don't know whose dog that was either. Okay. Now I'm going to read to you something. Henry was a bit of an interesting person. And when he died, he had the most fascinating obituary. And I'm going to read parts of it to you. Henry Rolfs, one of the West Bend's widely known citizens, and who for a number of years carried on a business successfully in this city, died at the home of his son, Robert H., on Friday morning. Death resulting from arterial sclerosis. Mr. Rolfs had spent the last year and a half in Tucson, Arizona, and Visalia, California, with his daughter, Miss Clara Rolfs. Several months ago, he suffered a slight stroke, and when he failed to respond to the best medical care, he was brought to West Bend to the home of his son, Robert H. Rolfs. There again, he was given every care, but age had made its impress, and gradually the sunset of life neared. I mean, really, they don't write them like this anymore. With his master's call finally came, it was peaceful and in full reconciliation with him who had allowed Mr. Rolfs to lost him. Who had allowed Mr. Rolfs to reach an age not given to many and remain mentally clear to his dying moment. Until stricken, Mr. Rolfs was a man physically strong and possessing all his faculties. He had the gratitude of his children and enjoyed it, and this making his final years general realization of love and appreciation by those nearest and dearest to him, whose care and attachment was boundless. Whatever. With full knowledge of having lived a long and useful life and having reared a family of children who are an honor and a credit to the communities in which they reside, his life work was finished and well done. His eternal sleep will in consequence be peaceful. I mean, really, what can I say? They just don't write bits like that anymore. Okay, so that was it for Henry. Now we're going to talk about Henry's eldest son, Robert Henry, my grandfather. Born in Milwaukee in 1888, Robert spends the first 8 years of his life believing his name is Grover Cleveland Rolfs. Again, we have no idea why. There he is. Handsome guy, actually. He looks a little like Henry, I think. I don't know.
That's Ted.
That looks like Ted? You want to stand up and see if it looks like him?
Yeah.
Stand up, Ted.
Absolutely.
That's okay.
Okay, now turn around.
don't know too much about my grandfather's early life until he goes to work for Anger Kress and becomes the bookkeeper and the secretary of the company. See, John? Yeah, there he goes. In 1915, he leaves to start his own business, Amity Leather Products. Now, I want to point out that West Bend was deeply rooted and involved with the leather industry. Some of the earliest industry in West Bend were the tanneries. There were 4 of them. I had no idea, I don't know who they were. And the river supplied the water so it was a natural for the tanneries. Not only did the river create a method for getting rid of the garbage, but it also supplied the tanneries with the water power they needed and the mills with the water power they needed. So, let's see. West Bend also had harness makers and shoemakers. Now, in 1894, 2 men arrived from Germany, George Enger and August Kress. The world changed. They were making their own products in Milwaukee until their plant burned down in 1894. And that's when local West Bend raised $14,000 to bring Enger Kress to West Bend. Think about it, that's pretty amazing. So, anyway, it was here that Enger Kress thrived. They had, this is fun, they had beer breaks twice a day when they would stop work and 2 guys would arrive with enough beer for all the workers. They'd have their beers and then they'd go back to work. I have no idea what their quality control looked like throughout the day. And the other thing that was sort of interesting is a lot of this didn't happen in a factory. It happened in the home, and a car that would be delivered to the home, and they would do that part of it, and then it would be picked up and taken to the next house, where the next person would do the next step. So I thought that was sort of an interesting approach. I will say this, Enger Kress was the first business to hire women in West Bend. They had to work in their own room and they had to work in pairs.
Oh my gosh.
I'll work.
Nevertheless, they were employed.
Like quality control or what?
Dogs. And did they get the beer breaks?
Yeah.
Or was that just for the guys? I don't know.
Maybe that's why they were dying so early. They didn't get the beer break.
Right. Better they had beer breaks. Right. Okay, so in 1915, Robert Henry leaves Enger Kress and starts his own business. The investors were his 3 brothers and the tanneries in Milwaukee, looking for an outlet for their products. Their first home was Peter's Country Store, which today is the Pearl of Canton.
Oh my God.
Yeah, really. The name Amity was chosen because it meant friendly cooperation. This was to be the company's philosophy. Within 2 years, Amity had 15 employees and needed more space. So they moved to the 3rd floor of the Centrum building, which looked a lot different then than it looks today. A few years later, the workforce expanded to 50 and they took over the 1st and 2nd floors as well. So they had 3 floors going on there. Okay. In 1917, a New York sales office was established, and that gave them a foothold in the East Coast fashion markets. It's just even hard to imagine. It started World War I. My grandfather believed that real leather would be the key to selling wallets. Early advertisements said, if it's stamped Amity, it's leather. During World War I, production slowed, and so Amity turned to making leather jerkins with wool liners for the soldiers. Okay? Enter the 20s. I wish I had one today. In 1921, Robert marries Clara Marie Blau, a school teacher from Spring Green, Wisconsin. I think that's the most beautiful picture I can possibly imagine. So, their first son, Thomas, was born a year later, in 1922, followed by James in 24 and Robert in 26. Sometime early on, Clara was diagnosed with tuberculosis. She then spent probably the bulk of her life in a sanitarium outside of Green Bay and was only home for intermittent visits. She died in 1941, which was 5 years before they discovered the cure for tuberculosis. So, okay. We're in the 20s. Okay. After a time, Amity continued to prosper, and in 1924 they built the north wing of the factory on Main Street for their workforce of 200. So in less than 20 years they were employing 200 people. In 1929 they added the tower and the addition to the south. Now for those of you who don't know, the tower housed the water tank, the water tower. They were obviously, for good reason, terrified of fire. Plus the fact the factory was on the outskirts of town, there was nothing out there. So they put a water tower on top of the building and built a tower around it. I did not know that until about 20 years ago. Okay. Oh, in 1929, the other thing that happened is the US changed the size of its currency. They downsized it. So Amity, ahead of its time, came out with a wallet called the Little Bill. And it went gangbusters, because people had smaller currency, and now they had a wallet that fit it. So the reputation grew. The business remained strong during the Depression in the 30s. They became the first to introduce a wallet for women. Here we go again. They took a man's wallet, folded it in half, put a tab on it, and offered it in black and brown. They said, here's our ladies' line. Evidently it worked. The Rolfs brand was introduced in 1932. The Rolfs brand was sold in department and specialty stores, and Amity was found in drug and sundry outlets. In 1933, in the midst of the Depression, my grandfather built his home on top of Decorah Hill. And the story I have on it, because I'm lucky enough to live there today, was that the stonemason came out from Milwaukee every week and had given my grandfather the stone just for the work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. And conversely, look at West Bend. We were at full employment throughout the entire 30s. You know, Amity Rolfs was expanding. Everybody else was doing well. And now just outside of West Bend, the Depression took hold. So, 1934, they bought the Lagarde Handbag Company. And it was their first attempt at making women's handbags. It failed. In 1937, my grandfather lost his house key. So they redesigned wallets to have a hidden key place for hidden keys. But this was all part of their innovation. Okay, the 40s brought World War II. That changes everything. And they acquired the Eisman K Company, which was a line of travel kits. And so that put them not only in personal leather goods, but in toilet kits and some map kits and some things like that. They had to make some adjustments during the war, so they went back to making purses for the Waves and the WACs and the Army nurses. And word has it that Eleanor Roosevelt carried a Rolfs purse. Again, that's the only time they did something positive with purses. My grandfather volunteered his service to the U.S. Treasury, promoting and selling war bonds. His plan was adopted by the U.S. Treasury because Wisconsin led the way with the highest per capita bond sales for rural areas in the nation. The end of World War II brought everything and ushered in what they call the Amity expansion years. Leather was in short supply, so my grandfather traveled to South America to source out other leathers. There he discovered Yakaratinga. And he corners the market. Yakaratinga was a lizard of some sort, right? Yeah. He ordered 10,000 skins and tied up the whole Yakaratinga market.
There you go.
John Rosick told me tonight we quit making that when Yakaratingas became endangered. I don't know when that was. But it also produced the first $100 wallet available for sale. And evidently they could sell it. So in 1946, they opened up a plant in Sturgeon Bay, or they acquired one, and then they opened a second one 2 years later. Again, purses were involved. Oops. Okay. My father, Tom, joined the firm in 1946, and by 1952, all three sons were working there for my grandfather. In 1950, they introduced the assembly line in the factories. We just don't even think of factories without assembly lines today, but this was brand new at the time. And it obviously improved their efficiency. They continued to introduce new products like the Key Caddy. New products meant new business, meant more space, both office and factory, and an expanding sales force. 1957, they purchased the Indiana Avenue plant, and in 1959, the office you see today was built on the south end of the factory. In the early 60s, they opened a plant in San Lorenzo, Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico offered industry a tremendous tax break to locate their manufacturing down there. Amity took advantage of it, and so did most of the drug companies. And it was a huge boon to the island. So they did that, and that plant was expanded probably 4 or 5 times over the years, right? Yeah. All right. The distribution center in West Bend was also built at that time, and the Indiana plant was converted to leather finishing. In 1965, on the 50th anniversary, my grandfather died. My Uncle Jim retired, leaving his brothers to lead Amity through the 70s and 80s. The business continued to flourish. Okay. 1966 brought new manufacturing and distribution plants in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Now, 1976, the international division opened, leading to factories in Canada and in Great Britain. In 1977, a regional distribution center in Goldsboro, North Carolina. 1978, they doubled the size of the West Bend Distribution Center, which had expanded twice over the years. My dad would say, that's a lot of wallets. Sales tripled between 1960 and 1979. In the 1980s, Amity Rolfs was dominant in the industry throughout the world. They designed and built their own machinery, one of their big secrets. They did their own display cases, and if you bought a wallet at Sears or JCPenney, it was an Amity or Rolfs wallet under the Sears or JCPenney's name. So it was hard to avoid. Unfortunately, their women's line was not particularly impressive, but it survived and did well. Handbags, not so much. Handbags were sort of their nemesis. They tried it a couple times and they always failed, so they decided they were going to go back to doing what they did well. And that's probably a good thing. So now we're at the when all is said and done stage. Yes, okay, here we are. In the 70s, I think my dad and uncle realized that there were 9 of us in our generation. And people always want to know why this didn't stay in the family. Well, it didn't stay in the family because there were 9 of us. Some of us were more talented than others, obviously. But more than that, what had happened when my Uncle Jim retired, my father and uncle were forced to buy him out, and they did not want us to have to be, they realized they couldn't absorb 9 of us, so that those other siblings would have to be bought out, and that would be sort of a burden. And the family had, basically, this is what our investment was in, and the family needed to diversify. So the decision was made that none of us would enter the business, and it was made very clear to us from, I'm going to say, mid-70s on, that we were getting educations and we were on our own. And frankly, I think it worked out pretty well. We're all living happily ever after. And that's where I'm going to leave it, unless you have any questions.
questions for you.
The women died and the men married again and had more kids.
I probably should have cleared these with you, so for that, I'm sorry. But just curiously, you know, what role did your mother play in supporting or creating the business? I mean, really?
None. My mother was a housewife who took care of the house, and you have to understand, my dad probably traveled a great deal from Mondays to Fridays, and we were alone in the country, so she did a hero's job.
Yes.
But I will also say that her name wasn't on the deed to the house.
Reflective of the time.
Yeah.
That actually
Yeah.
is a great lead in to my next question, which is, the markets have been really good to people. And what we hear from clients all the time is, it's easy to transfer money. That's divisible. You've got you've got lots of consultants to help you through that process. But beyond the money, how do you transfer the values? How did your parents transfer the values that help create their success and the family unity and all the things that your family exemplifies? Along the way, how did they transfer those to you?
I have no idea. I don't have an answer for you, Kathy. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Was business and was it talked about a lot at
Oh, there's a lot I didn't know. There was a lot we didn't know that was kept from us, I'm sure. I mean, you also have to understand, we went to school in West Bend. West Bend was a blue-collar town. We went to school with these kids, and we were just like everybody else. You were nothing special because your dad worked across the street at the office.
which is a great value.
Yeah,
and humility.
It really is. And I would say that when we lost my father, what he did is he said to us, remember West Bend because you live the way you live because of West Bend.
Wonderful.
And I mean, so this was what it was, you know. I guess I don't know, there was nothing specific other than they were a constant presence in our lives,
Which
you know,
is,
for better or for worse.
which is
Yeah.
key. Well, and the fact that there's a family foundation is maybe the greatest way of transferring the value of giving back and philanthropy. And for that, we're all grateful.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
There to give back.
Yeah,
That
Yeah.
was, and I think that was.
you're fortunate, you give back, you're right.
My family, for Cedar,
Yeah,
this is your home.
yeah,
This is where you grew, you built, you made and you give back.
yeah,
It's the old, you leave your campsite better than you found.
yeah. For the most part. Yes, John?
Can I ask one question? On ladies' purses.
Yeah.
There was that one that folded over. Does anybody remember? It was long and square.
A clutch.
And you filled
A
the
clutch.
bottom.
A clutch.
And there
They had
was a
those.
zipper and it folded over. That was quite a smash.
Yeah, that was fine. It's just every time they went into the handbag business, they failed. They just didn't do all
This
of
was
it.
very successful.
Yeah, well, their women's line was fine. It was not their strength.
No, I know, but that was successful.
Right. I mean, by and large, it had to be. I mean, they couldn't have failed at that many things, but, I mean, the reality of it is this makes it sound like it was nothing but expansion and increases all the way through. There were setbacks, and I'm sure I don't even know about all, I mean, it was a setback when my grandfather died because it did leave, my uncle wanted out, and Tom and Bob were forced to having to buy their brother out at a very delicate time, which I think led to their decision to not put any of us in that position. So there were trials, and I'm sure it was tough. But I also think most of that was shielded from us.
I think you were saying the wallet, the man's wallet.
Yeah.
I think Rolfs almost became like Kleenex, synonymous with
Yeah, but it could
You
well have been, yeah.
a man's wallet, and
Right, I mean, the number of people who, over the years have said to me, oh, I got one of those for high school graduation. It was like, okay, they were ubiquitous, yeah. And for that, I'm very grateful. It was good. John, you were going to say something?
Well, there was a lot of things that philanthropically people don't ever know
Right.
what they have done before they passed away. While they were living here in the West Bend, a lot of things were done anonymously. They were very big supporters of Notre Dame, which has their name on the aquatic center. But in town, there were so many things that people never knew that the Rolfs family, both Tom and Bob,
Thank you.
had taken care of.
Yeah, it just got taken care of. That's how they did things. Yeah. Yes.
So I have a friend in Mequon, and her maiden name is Getter. And when she comes to West Bend, she points out, when you talk about the Washington House, because I'm kind of new to the West Bend area, but she points out that it does say Getter.
Yeah.
Is that the Washington House? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
that's it.
Okay.
Yes, I have no idea what it's like inside today.
Well, and I'm not sure if that was her great-grandfather or who that was. I'm texting her to ask her, but I know she always says that was her relative, right there.
Entirely possible.
Yeah.
I mean, these men were fairly prolific. It was just the women that died early. This is a reoccurring, fire and women dying early were reoccurring themes in this whole thing. Yes, Buzz?
Where, in the original building with the two towers on each side that town center building, wasn't there a terrible fire there, and that's why they moved out and built their own facility with a water tower on top?
Probably. I think that one of them had a fire initially too. Fires were everywhere. It was just, if it wasn't in the tobacco plant, it was in the leather plant. It was just, maybe the breweries escaped it to some degree. I don't know. Kate?
You know where the animals came from, the leather that they made their wallets and billfolds out of was, you mentioned the lizard. I just wondered about the other leather.
Well, cows.
Are you here? Was it here in Wisconsin?
I think, as I recall, I read that the Midwest was very good for hides for certain things, and other things got their hides from other parts of the country. But I can't really speak with any knowledge about that.
I was always told they came from South America because they didn't have barbed wire fence.
Yeah. There was, specialty leathers came from Argentina, but the tanning process was done in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
The leather finishing, the coloring and all that sort of stuff was done in the plant on Indiana Avenue, which is
right next door.
Right, where we showered debris on pig heaters periodically. Yes?
So all nine, are you not to be personal, are all nine of you left yet? Are you?
Yeah, we're all alive and well and thriving.
So the women haven't died yet?
No,
We woke up.
no, not yet. Yeah, and for the most part, we all get along.
That's good.
Yeah.
Occasionally.
Yes.
Was the company still left then?
Yes, the company was sold to the employees in July of 1992. Yeah. No, it's gone, and I think, my understanding is somebody owns the trade names, but I don't know, we don't know who.
another company in Dallas, Texas.
Really? Tandy? They still own, I thought they sold the name.
Tandy went bankrupt, they're gone.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They bought it originally, and as he said, now they're out. The Chinese
Yeah,
inundated the market with
yeah.
expensive leather goods, and it just was very, very difficult.
I mean, I would have to say that Dad and Bob's timing was as good as it gets. You know, they walked out the door on top, and for the family, that was great. And I've never taken a poll among my cousins or my brothers about, Did any of us wish, I'm sure some of us wish they could have gone into the business, but it really wasn't gonna work. And so this was the best possible outcome.
I'll tell you, if nothing else, I've learned with Red Top Henry. Amazing.
Do they still make those?
I hope not. They might, somewhere. Who knows? I don't think they have smoking rooms anymore either. That's sort of kind of left the building. So, yeah, just all part of it. But, yeah, not a bad legacy is what I'd say.
Wonderful.
Thank you.